Hello.
Super.
Good to
Thank
see
you so much. Thank you so much, Roger, for inviting me. Sharing. Oh, hello, Dan. Thank you so much. I'll be sharing with you architecture, bioarchitecture, sacred geometry, new stuff we've been doing, we've been developing. I will share screen. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yep, it came up well.
Perfect. So before I begin, I would love if you to do an exercise that we for many years, actually like 15 years, I was doing a lot of drawings, you know, like sacred geometry drawings. We're drawing by hand a lot of sacred geometry, and we have a lot of input from these drawings. But lately we've been doing something that has been very powerful, which is any form that we see, we draw it with our own eyes. So I want to invite you to do this now 10 seconds, and then through the presentation, you can actually do it. So if you close your eyes just for a very, very brief moment, just draw with your eyes closed. Move your eyes to draw a circle. You may choose maybe to the right, maybe to the left, doesn't matter. And then draw a triangle. Draw it, and then draw the opposite triangle. So that's pretty easy. Then try to draw something more complex. Try to draw a pentagon. Try to see if you can actually clearly draw it with your eyes. Now try to do an hexagon, 6 sides. Okay, please open your eyes. What we have been realizing now that we are more involved into all these sacred geometry forms and all these sacred geometry language is that it was very powerful at that time when we were drawing it with psychogeometry, big geometries. And then we did this. We did like an interiorization of the geometry form, and was very powerful. We were recreating it in our brain. And now, whenever we have do this technique, geometry starts appearing. That's something like amazing, because wherever we go, in different places that we go, like, you know, like an architect that we're asked to do something there. I will share a lot of images. I will share a lot of information. But this is something that I personally really invite you to do it in every time that you can, just to start drawing the shapes. You know, at the beginning will be like linear drawings with your eyes, but eventually, instead of you drawing, let's say, like a triangle, you know, one line, etc., you will draw all the triangle in one single spot. And there is where magic starts to appear, because then you can go to different places, you know, like you know, like a space, like to your room or to your office, etc. And if you have practiced this a lot, these shapes with your open eyes will start manifesting. It's really amazing. So the more you open to them, the more they start manifesting. So, well, my name is Arturo Ponce de León. I studied architecture. I studied also psychology and telecommunications engineer. So I'll be talking to you about architecture, bioarchitecture in sacred geometry, and the mathematics of transcendence. So the link that I want to establish here is the link between the microcosm, the very small, and the macrocosm, the ultra big. And in between, we are in the mesocosm. So as architects, we're designing these structures that we live in. So we will see through the presentation how they're all linked. A lot of this information you may have seen it, but we've put all this together. So you can see very clearly how the very small links to the very big, and here in between, in the mesocosm, it's so important for us to choose the best design we can if we're able to build our house from scratch, or if we have to, to rent a space, etc. So we can literally pick the best place where we will live. So you know that the basic sacred geometry form in the universe is a torus. And the torus is like this apple shape, you all know that. The torus connects the infinite small with the infinite big, and you have this torus shape everywhere. And from the torus shape, you can create the vector equilibrium. And you have, from this torus, you can have fractality. You can embed one torus inside the other. So from our Earth, you can embed the solar system, the Milky Way, etc., etc. And you literally can create these universal or multiversal threads of consciousness that one individual is inside the cellular or the atomic levels, inside the collective, inside the planetary, etc., etc. And they're all embedded one inside the other. So talking about sacred geometry, what we have found really fascinating is what Buckminster Fuller said many years ago, that through the cuboctahedron, when you compress it, you create an icosahedron, an icosahedron when you compress it. And if you compress it a little bit more, you create an octahedron. So this compression creates or goes from something that is static or stable, which is the cuboctahedron, is a vector equilibrium, to something that is dynamic, the icosadodeca, which has gyration. So you can go through all the spectrum of sacred geometry forms through this compression of the cuboctahedron. So in fractal architecture, we have some characteristics that defines what is a fractal or a sacred building. The first one is it has to have a fractal design. It has to incorporate fractality. The second one is that it is designed with this numerical and geometrical constant of sacred geometry. I will go then with every one of these points. Other very important aspect is that its primordial unit of measurement comes from Planck length. That means that from the most basic unit of measure, you multiply by phi, you have this beautiful scale that Dan Winter developed a long time ago. And you also can find all the architecture and all the buildings that fit in this unit of measurement. The fourth one is that it creates harmonic inclusiveness. It creates phase conjugation because it's built with some type of materials that naturally they create that. It can create a measurable bioactive field and longitudinal waves. And as you know, our DNA is like an antenna that amplifies whatever is in the surrounding space. So whatever fields we are embedded is the fields or the information that we can amplify. And it integrates the geometry of Earth, let's say the microcosm, of man, of we as humanity, the mesocosm, and the sky, the macrocosm. So fractality It's this endless pattern, these self-similarity patterns that repeats in different scales. Simply put, a fractal is a pattern that repeats itself in different scales. And you have a lot of different fractals. You have fractals in 2D and fractals in 3D and very complex and more ways of fractality. And fractals can be created from any shape or any geometry. You can create fractals through a triangle, through a pentagon, through a dodecahedron. You can create fractals out of any shape or any form. In mathematics, it's also called iteration. You replicate the same form inside. In architecture, as Lydia was saying, you create the same shape. You just repeat it again and again and again, and you have these more detailed patterns of fractality. You can find fractals in nature, like in all our nature, in geometry, and in different formulas of algebra. But all our universe, our visible and our invisible universe is made with fractals. Neurons, our lungs, the branches of the trees, the spirals of the galaxies, how different plants, the phyllotaxis, how different plants start, to grow. They grow in these fractal patterns. This is some algebraic reproductions of patterns of fractality. And in technology, we incorporate fractality because it's better for communication. So, for example, chips, computer chips, when they are designed as fractals, they are naturally cooler because they have less friction or less resistance. The same happened with antennas in the mobile phone. Many decades, they used to exist these mobile phones that had a very, like a long antenna. Now the antenna is there, but it's just a fractal antenna. It's a better way to send and receive signals. So here you can see in the screen different images of fractality. Our heart, trees, spirals, hurricanes. And from there, you can take fractals, you can put the planet Earth, and you can start reproducing, or you can start putting geometry, different geometries around the planet Earth, and play with it. Different scientists have done it. They play to see what happened in the crossing points or in the intersections of these planetary grids. And sometimes amazing things happen. For example, in this case, the pentagon itself, it's located into this dodecahedron structure. But there are many scientists, Becker and Huygens, there are many scientists that were exploring this. We used to work many years ago with a biologist doctor in Mexico, and he was doing an exploration about the dodecahedron, specifically in Mexico, how all temples and pyramids were located in these structures. So as Lydia was explaining, temples, fractality in temples, the more fractal, of course, the more difficult to build, the more, let's say, you have to invest more time, you have to invest more resources. But of course, it's more beautiful and it's more powerful. So here you can see different fractals in mosques. These cities or these fortresses that were built all around the world with these different patterns of fractality. This is in Africa, in India, temples. The other aspect, this transcendental mathematics, it requires the following. It requires the three numerical constants, the three geometric constants. You can derive from there the flower of life and the pentaflower, and all the group of Platonic solids and Archimedean solids. So you know the phi ratio, which is the most basic division of nature, the most harmonic one, the one that is more fractal because it contains itself in every time that you divide it. So phi 1.618, pi and Euler. And you can create with these numbers different geometries. In the pentagon itself, it's all phi ratio. Here you can see this is a logarithmic spiral made from pentagons. And you have different formulas for phi as a number. Beautiful formulas, like this one, the top is just so beautiful. The unity plus the unity divided by itself, and you go every time more close to phi ratio. This is other constants, geometric constant that we use as architects to design, which is you can draw them, you know, with a compass, and they will all give you harmonic drawings or harmonic expansions of a design. This is the Giga extension, which you start creating through the square root. You know, you have, let's say here, the square of 1 times 1. And then the diagonal is square root of 2. And then you start extrapolating these diagonals, and you can create the Giga spiral, which all of them, it's a harmonic way to create a layout in a master planning or in the design of your house. This is similar. This is an octagonal logarithmic spiral. And many logos and many companies all around the world, they use these symbols because they're very easy to transmit, very easy to understand, and they replicate the way nature is created. We can find phi ratio in our hand, in our heartbeat, in water, exactly where we live, you know, as centigrade temperature. We can see the same phi ratio in the angle. When you put phi ratio in an angle, it's 137.5, which corresponds also in the subatomic world, where the electron goes in and out of the atom. And in this bioarchitecture, we also incorporate the Planck length. Planck length is a unit of length that is the distance that light travels in a Planck time, which physically it's 1.61 with minus 35 zeros. So it's a very small unit of measurement. It's this. So if we have, let's say, our unit of measurement are meters as humans, if you go very small, you will go to the Planck length, which is the limit where light begins. And you have different formulas for that. Then Winter, you know, has explored, and many other physicists has explored a lot about it. And we will see in a bit how we apply this to architecture. So harmonic inclusiveness is the number of harmonics contained in any living oscillator. And the best way to create more surface or oscillation in a design is doing this, is doing more layers of geometry in the surface. Of course, this implies in architecture, in building, this implies more work, because it's not the same putting a straight wall than creating these curves or these geometric patterns. So you can find it also in bioacoustics. You can find it also with Manfred Klein's. He made a lot of experiments about what is the pressure and the geometry it will create related to every motion. And the whole idea of cymatics. Cymatics is the transformation of sound into geometry. And this geometry, you literally create like a bubble of geometry. You make a section or a cut, and this is what you see. So through phase conjugation, you intend in architecture to create this implosion or these cones of suction of energy, the transformation of the torus when it goes from the outside to the inside, this implosion, this gravitational force. In architecture, we use it creating a center point, or what we call a heart of the space. So this heart of the space can be either your bedroom, can be a little small place that you have like for a temple, or your meditation area, or your yoga area. It doesn't matter where it is. When we design from scratch, we specifically locate in the best place. But when you have already a place and you cannot create, from scratch a new place, you put the heart of the place somewhere, and there is where your attention and the electromagnetic energy will start to flow. So the bioactive field, we have these electromagnetic fields around our body, these gravitational fields around our body, and these are different measurements. These bioactive fields are the ones that get nourished when we live in more harmonic or more fractal spaces. Longitudinal waves, you can see here a transverse wave that moves up and down, and then through this cone or through this torus, it transforms into a longitudinal wave. Similar things we do when we design architecture. So when you put an implosion point or a place, the heart of the place, we are literally creating that implosion force. We're literally transforming the movement of the wave into this implosion or into this suction of energy. And because DNA acts or works as a fractal antenna, when we have been exploring what happens if you live in a pentagonal shape, like let's imagine your house is a pentagon or your house is a dodecahedron. We have been exploring a lot with that. And we have realized that literally, because our DNA is an antenna, it will connect to different emotions, it will connect to different frequencies, and it will connect to different messages. And a question that I have for a lot of time, for many, many years, was why we as humanity, the vast majority of us, lives in cubes. We live in rectangles, we live in cubes. We live in 90-degree angles. And one of why we don't live naturally in dome shapes or in cylinders or in pentagons or in hexagons? Why we reproduce this shape? Why we reproduce the shape of being in these 90-degree angles? The Mathematics of Unification, this graphic from Dan Winter, goes from the Planck length, the very, very small, you multiply it by phi 1.618, and you end up having a scale, or a scale, that when we take this scale and we put it against the sacred measurements in architecture, they match exactly. I'm not talking only about the proportions in architecture. Like, let's say you have the you have a rectangle, and this rectangle you can divide it by phi ratio. I'm not talking about only the proportion that it's inside, but the actual measure of the rectangle. So here we can see different scientists, different researchers came to the same conclusion, like what they call sacred measurements in different philosophies and in different scientific ways of looking at it are the same. And they are basically using the square root of 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. This first image that I present to you at the beginning of the extension of the Giga spiral. So I'm going to share with you some of the projects that we've been developing, how we can apply all this theory into something more real. So this is one of the projects that we really like. It's all based in a pentagon. This is a family house. It's 10,000 square meters area, and the building is approximately 1,000 square meters. So we can see here different things. First, the element of water creating a triangle here. And then in the center, this pentagon and the spirals, 10 spirals in implosion and explosion going to the left and to the right. And in the center, there is this fire. Around the center, we locate these houses. It's a family house, so they're all connected somehow. And the idea, the whole concept of this is that the angle in between them, it's not a 90-degree angle. The motion that it produces is completely different than if we have done the same arrangement in a rectangular base. It's absolutely different. Here, there is like a yoga place. So it's a circular place because the shape, the cylinder shapes or the circular shapes are the best when you want to contain this energy also in terms of function. This is some renders. We realized that it doesn't matter the aesthetics, or it doesn't matter what type of style of architecture you want to create. If you apply the same principles, you can obtain similar results. I mean, if it's an ancient building, it will have other aesthetics. If it's a more modern building, it will have other language. But the geometric and the proportions and the rhythms, for example, here, it's all based in a cross-section and in the plan itself, you know, in the top view. It's based on golden ratio, it's based on the pentagon. So if you take exactly where all these walls, where they stop, it's a pentagon in different relations, let's say. Here, this is other angle of water looking at one of the houses. And here, you can see this is a place for yoga. We put a lot of geometry. Sometimes different clients ask us, I want explicit geometry. I want to literally see the geometry. Some other clients, friends tell us, no, we don't want geometry. We want that the geometry is hidden. So I'll share with you in a bit some of these ways to hide geometry, but actually they keep working in this geometrical informational field. Here, we put some geometry, an abstraction of the geometry of the whole master plan in the windows. So it's not so saturated, the same way we did here in some walls. This is some renders from the inside. And this is the whole master plan. This is the 10,000 square meters. We put the geometry that we obtain, we get from different studies, you know, the client analysis, etc. And we locate the center of the implosion point. Either studying the geophysical maps, what Lydia was talking about, or you can do it through the radiesthesia, you can do it through reading geophysical maps, you can do it through different devices that are very sensitive to locate where is these anomalies of the electromagnetic fluctuations. And we know that this is the best area to put geometry. And then after many years of doing a lot of trial and error to see what actually works and what doesn't work, we know now that if we put these type of geometries in a physical form, let's say we have like a piece of wood, we weave it with copper wire or with gold wire or with silver wire, and we locate them in the corners or where we found anomalies or where we found some Hartmann or Curry lines, etc. We cannot change the presence of this energy, but we can change the quality of the energy that it emits. So the work of biogeometry and different researchers that have done how through geometry you can change the quality of the energy, we have been applying it. This is different studies, bioclimatic studies, to locate. Usually architects, we tend to only see either the orientations of the sun, like the bioclimatic analysis, and the views of the area. So all this architecture that goes further and deeper takes into consideration these invisible fields or these electromagnetic fields. This is other project with very explicit geometry in facades. The client wanted like that. So it's fully packed with geometry. We really like it. And it's different renders from inside, from outside. And again, the presence of water. In all our projects, we tend to have a harmony of the presence of the elements. Temazcal, because this place it's in Mexico and we use a lot Temazcal. This is another project that is more modern, is more simple, but has the same geometric structure and the same harmonics that that we've been talking about, square root of 2, square root of 3, etc. And what I was telling you before is that it doesn't matter what aesthetics or what type of interior design you want to make or exterior design, you can apply all these principles to any aesthetics, to any shapes. This is different interior renders, the place for gathering, yoga, etc. This is another project that we really like, this is a master plan that has these elements. So the idea of avoiding or trying to avoid the straight lines is crucial, because the more you go like an expansion and a contraction, it's exactly the way waves, natural waves in our universe flow. So you can see here in the middle, it has this expansion and contraction of waves. So every element here, this is hotels, restaurants, etc. Every element has a different geometry because it responds to different functions. This is a very, very huge vesica Piscis. This is a built project in Chile. You can see here the pentagon, the pentaflower, and this is also pentagon, all made with natural materials. This is also a built project, which is a healing center. It's based on a torus shape. Of course, the physical shape in the center, it's open. So the presence of water is actually rotating clockwise in this healing center. So this is the physical geometry that we put, and it absolutely changed all the ambience, the aesthetics, and the emotional when people go there. It changed absolutely. The presence of water, this is inter-design, so you can create really beautiful things with light, with the presence of geometry. Here is a facade of a house, but the whole design was made with these proportions. Depending on every client, on every project, we use different proportions. But you can see we have many, many, many different ways to incorporate, since this, for example, this is a project that the client didn't want any explicit geometries. Here you can see the torus shape. Some of the other projects, like therapeutical places, the bath. This is a center where we merge both the logo and the physical place, like the structure, the geometric hidden structure of the place. We love this project. This is one of the first projects we did. It's all made with natural materials from top to bottom, bamboo, cob, wood, etc. And it's a double spiral, a double golden spiral, and in the center, we put fire. Transformative art, we weave these geometries. We have a 1x1 piece of wood, and then by hand we weave it. And we have seen how with this type of resonators, you can change the electromagnetic energy of a place, of a room, of a house, of an office. This is all made by hand in small, medium, bigger sizes. Here you can see it. We weave these geometries under the floor. And it's really amazing the feeling you get with it. There are many studies, you can do some research online, but there are many studies that proves how geometry affects biology. And this one, this was 1,000 square meters in Greece. This was really amazing because the owner is very important. It's the first producer of organic food in Greece. And he asked us to weave all this geometry under the floor before they put the final floor in a place that he was going to store seeds. So we wove everything for 1 week. We were there working. And then he put some of his seeds in this place and other seeds outside the place. So next year, he told us that 30% of the yield was increased. So one part of him was like, I cannot believe that just by putting some geometry under the floor that actually will have no contact, let's say physically contact with seeds, how this thing can happen. How geometry can affect just by its own shape the bioactive field of seeds, so they have these results. So this is here, we're weaving in different places. In we have done this a lot for many years. So if you want to know more information about the work I've been doing with different companies, now with Geophilia, the Geophilia Institute, before with ARCA, we have many projects there in arca.com or geophilia.org. We also have a lot of information there. These books are in English. If you want, you can go to geophilia.org or to arca.com and you will find them there. This is the book that Lydia was telling you about, her research, her PhD. 5 years she was doing an amazing research. And also I was invited to make a seminar, to make a conference in the Unified Physics of Nassim, and linking all these architectural, this vision of connected architecture with the holofractal model, the unified physics model. So that's for me. I don't know if you have any questions or comment. I will be very happy to share more.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, Arturo. I'll just look through the chat. There was Virginia was saying to Lydia, amazing presentation. I took your intro course. This was a great review. I am in awe of the amount of research you've done and the findings you present. Highly recommend the book. And Gina says fab. Irina says excellent. That was fantastic. Blown away. Extraordinary. Any synergy between consciousness and energy in a temple?
What's the question?
Any synergy between consciousness and energy in a temple? That was Lydia's presentation a little bit more.
Yeah.
Biogeometry, it seems right. Oh, okay, it's not a question. If you've got a question, you can always put your hand up, folks. I'm just looking through the chat window.
Hi, I'm Stefan. I love your work. Your work is so inspiring. I do like sound and light architecture with speakers. So we can incorporate the angles to create like 5-ratio funnels to amplify the sound and build it into the architecture. So my understanding is to listen to the frequency of the land and then create from the harmonic proportion of the land. So that's one of the things I listen to when I go out to nature, and I listen to the Bani, the sound audible sound current that's running through everything. And then I start there and then build in harmonic proportion. But for speaker technology, to add sound and also a light component, that's the stuff I like to build, is immersive projection mapping, and creating it to go with your biorhythms as well as meditation spaces. So yeah, no, I do, and I love everything you're talking about, like frequency waterfalls, and so you can tune the water as it's going out. So if you want to tune it to different frequencies, you can do that as well. But yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm really inspired by your work, and yeah, I would love to reach out someday and build something with you if that's in alignment. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a question from Gregory. What was the second website you referred to?
Arca, I can write it here. Arca.com. And the other one is geophilia.org. It's the two major websites we have with all this information and projects and tons of articles and research and so much to share.
Cameron is saying, spectacular, hoping to reach out to commission this type of architecture for future buildings for Uriel, pharmacy, and anthroposophical medicine manufacturer. There you go. You might have got a commission out of it. You see that from Cameron?
Just to say also to Arturo, thank you, Dan, here, that we included Arturo's work in the new bioarchitects.net group, where we're putting all these special advanced bioarchitects around the world together as a team. And there's a new plan with Irena there, you'll see, to develop a 3D printer for buildings where the material clay in the 3D printer adjusts the capacitance for charge implosion by measurement. And in collaboration with Arturo, also that in Bali there, Juan Schlosser has made great strides in measuring the capacitance of buildings and proving the effect on seed germination in beautiful correlation to what Arturo just spoke about. It's powerful. So if the field is centripetal, it is indeed bioactive and harmonic inclusive. Very cool. Thank you, Arturo.
Yes, Dan. We're making some synergy.
All cooking, all good.
I don't think